What's up, guys? Welcome back to Look Up, our Superman in review. My name is Kyle. Thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. Go check out the other content, but this is our live-action Superman in review. My first time watching the Christopher Reeve films, and this is the final Christopher Reeve film. Does it go out on a high note, guys, or sort of a low note? We'll talk about that, but if you haven't seen the series before, what I'm going to do, guys, is give my thoughts on the film. I'm going to give a score out of 10, my favorite character, and we're going to rank it against the first three movies. So, guys, movie number 4. Appreciate you guys. Let's fly. This movie starts off really promising, right? This is a 1987 film. It's the most modern film. I don't know if it's necessarily the best made film, but technically it's the most impressive. And I was excited to see, the crisp visuals, and we got the most modern movie so far, and the flying was better in Superman 3, and I was like, here we go. But unfortunately, all of the flying and all of the action scenes are so ridiculous and look so terrible, and I don't know how somehow we reverted back to probably something that looks worse than Superman 1 or 2, that is so just over the top and crazy, and they stuck with the silly tone again. But there's a cool premise here. There's a mature, serious premise where the threat of nuclear war and the arms race, and this is the quest for peace. And the movie has so much potential to be awesome, and it's just not. And there's some fun moments, like the Superman Clark thing, where he's switching back, and the girl that looks like she's out of my league girl, who plays the new daughter who comes in, and they're like, oh, we're just going for clicks and headlines instead of, not clicks, I guess not at this time. There was no internet yet, which is crazy. Just headlines, and they're going for promiscuous headlines, and they want to get as many things to sell as many things. They don't really care about the truth. They're not really doing journalism. They're just looking for people to get the paper. And so they're kind of changing the Daily Planet, and the original, the OG crew is like, hey, not loving that. I love how they still have the same photographer and they still have the same boss, and it's great. It adds a lot of continuity to the series, and it's now, 9 years after the original film, and it's nice that they still have that crew together. But we do get Lois Lane again, although she does have kind of a diminished role again in this one. Her amnesia / memories are hit or miss, and Superman seems like he's kind of manipulating her, where he's like, yo, he literally uses her to talk to someone because he's got to talk to someone about something, and so he kind of gives Lois back her memories, and then she's like, I remember everything, and he's like, oh, you know what, I know what to do, and then he's like, let me take those memories back, and it's like, bro, this is what makes it so weird, because when Superman 2 happened and Lois found out, right, and he told everything, and my name's Kal-El and I'm from Krypton, that should have been it, right? There should have been no amnesia. It should have been just you and Lois know, and Lois is keeping it secret. And so then there would be fun, little, oh, where's Clark? Oh, I'm sure he'll be coming along sometime. And, oh, can we do it with Superman? And then Lois would have to come up with fun excuses as to why they can't be together. But instead, we just get this weird thing where she just doesn't know he's Superman, but then sometimes remembers, because Superman kind of tells her he's kind of using her when he needs to be Superman, but can confide in someone. It's weird, and it's a strange choice. And it's just have her know. But that singing is fun, although confusing, and it's like, Clark, my guy, you're doing a lot of work to lie to two women, and it reminds me of that New Girl scene where he's like, you get one wife, that's how the world works, and it's like, you can't have two women. And it's just weird because it's a fun movie scene, it's fun creatively, where he flies down, he goes into a limo, he comes out, he goes in as Clark, he comes out as Superman. Then he flies up, and then he's running the elevator, and he gets stuck, and she's like, Clark, and then he goes out and flies back up, and they're like, oh, there's Superman, and she's like, oh, I'm out here, Lois, let's do the interview. And then she's like, oh, have you seen Clark? And I don't know. And then it's fun, but again, it's you're just lying to both of these women, and it's just tell them the truth, and see which one is interested in you. And it seems like this woman actually likes Clark for who he is, and then Lois, who's clearly in love with Clark, although she's like, I don't like Clark, I like Superman. And it's this is dumb, because we already had the thing in 2 where it's you love both, we get it, but it's dumb. So there's things like that. And then the whole nuclear race thing is really awesome, being hey, Superman, we need you to just get rid of all the nukes, because everyone's getting nuked up, right? It's the 80s, it's the late 80s, the Cold War, all that stuff is getting hot. I mean, it starts off, I forgot about this. It starts off with this great scene in Russia where this guy's singing, and there's okay, Comrade Sinatra. And this guy just gets absolutely fucking leveled by a satellite. And Superman comes in, saves him. It's cool. And he's like, it's safer singing in here. I'm like, awesome, dude. Really fun scene. Really fun way to start the movie off. It looks great. The suit looks great again. The theme is rocking, dude. The theme hits every time. That Superman John Williams theme, undefeated, dude. Every single time it hits, I'm like, let's go. Like it just gets you going. So that's cool. It's a cool subject. And then Superman's like debating, should I help with the arms race or not? He has like a weird Krypton like green lava pit in the barn, and I'm like, this seems weird. And then he can like kind of make it disappear, but it's like the last of Krypton's power, I guess. That part was kind of confusing. Maybe that's a comic thing. I don't know. But he's never supposed to interfere with human history or human things. Remember, I think Jor-El said that to him in the first movie, which is kind of a stupid thing because it's like, he's Superman. But then he goes, you know what? After he manipulates Lois, he's like, I'm going to get rid of all your nukes. And then people, I guess, are mad about that. So everyone just starts firing nukes. And Superman, it's fun where he goes in space and he's like, he's got a huge, like, literally like a fishing net of nukes. And then he just shot puts it into the sun, which is like obviously so ridiculous. But I was like, oh, okay, that's fun. Like, we're having fun with the goofiness, right? And then Lex Luthor's back, Gene Hackman. I'm like, great, love it, because I missed him in Superman 3. Wish he was in Superman 3. And he's back, and he's in prison, and he gets busted out of prison by his nephew. And it's a fun scene where he shows up in like a Corvette, and he's got like the RC, and he's kind of like a weird. He reminds me of what not Seth Rogen, Seth Green's character in Austin Powers, where he's like, okay, Scott, and he shows up, and then gets rid of the guards, and they breaks Lex out, and he's like, Uncle Lex, and he like looks up to him, but he's like this weird character. He feels like more like a 2000s character than like a 1987 character, but they plan together, and he's like, you know what, man, I'm gonna make where they steal a strand of Superman's hair, which is so strong that it can hold up to 1,000 pounds, which is really cool. Although there's like absolutely no security in there, and I thought they were gonna do like the cool cutout, like Mission Impossible style, where they cut the glass, and he's like, nope, he just hits it with like a wrench, and then he opens it up, and then the 1,000 pound weight falls down and doesn't like shatter the thing. It didn't. I mean, they put 1,000 pounds on it, but like you should have had it fall through the floor or something. But they steal it out. There's one guard apparently, and then they don't get in trouble. They lose the cops, and then he's like, "I'm gonna make a nuclear man," and I'm like, "Awesome, that's sick." He's like, "You know what's more powerful than all these nukes? The sun is basically a giant nuke," and it's like that's a really cool idea. And I'm like, he's gonna make an energy Superman or like a radiator, and it's gonna take him down, and he's probably gonna look really cool. And instead, he just looks like this guy, Mark Pillow, who is just like basically a WWE wrestler. And all the moves in here are like WWE, and they kind of make him brain dead. Where he talks like Gene Hackman, and he's like, "You have my voice." He's like, "Actually, you have my voice." He's like, "I created you," and it's like, "Oh, I was waiting for it like to the monster turns on the creator like Frankenstein," but he doesn't. He's just like, destroy Superman. He's like, but first we have fun. And I'm like, oh man, like why? Why? And his design was just like he just kind of glowed a little bit, but he just had like a WWE outfit. And they fight on the moon, which should be sick, but instead he's just like literally like it seems like he's jumping off the top rope, giving Superman like the people's elbow and stuff, and I'm like, oh man, and he's like literally like doing wrestling moves to hit Superman into the ground further, but he's useless without the sun power. So like every time he's in the dark, he just like he like curls down into a ball, and he's useless. And so Superman like throws him on what he thought I guess was the dark side of the moon, but the moon orbits, so like the sun's gonna come up, and so it does, and he gets back up and starts fighting, and then Superman eventually realizes that like he takes his energy and like throws him into like a missile or something, or just like throws him into like an open nuclear plant, doesn't tell anybody about it. All of a sudden the energy flow starts going off the charts, and it like powers everything, and people are like, what's going on, dude? Like, Superman, give a heads up, you know what I mean? But this movie, it should be a lot better than it is. It's a really cool concept, but they went the goofy route with it, and with something like the arms race and everything, and it's very obviously like they're trying to be like America is number one, because there's like multiple scenes where he fixed the flag's kind of the American flag on the moon is kind of bending over, and he fixes it, and it's like dun, 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 and it's like, all right, we get it. And then later on he like takes it up and he like fixes it again, and it's like the like look America, and it's like, okay, Okay, it's cool. We had the White House scene already, which was cool, but I feel like this movie just had so much more potential to be like really, really good, and it had a couple fun scenes, but like all the nuclear man stuff, I just thought would be cool, and I didn't care about, and it looked so bad effects wise. All of the fighting scenes and all of the flying scenes, dude. Oh my God, did they look horrible? They looked so laughably bad that I laughed multiple times out loud at the effects or the moves because I was like, that's some of the worst like effects I've ever seen. Like just straight up, it looked like a first grader made it, and I couldn't believe it looked worse than the first three movies. It was crazy. So I thought we hit the good point. The flying, everything was worse. Enjoyed this movie, but I wanted it to be more, and so we'll see where it lands on the score in the rankings, guys. But as an overall film, the good thing is the runtime hour and a half. Like I was hyped about that, dude. I was like, let's go. The first movie was 2.5, right? So it's like we cut an hour down, and like every Superman movie should be between an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes, like in and out, dude. So even though I enjoyed the pace of this movie, things were going along, and I checked the time, like, oh, there's only an hour left in this movie, and I was like kind of disappointed, but then all the Nuclear Man stuff kind of lost me, so I was like, I thought this was gonna be really cool, and it wasn't. But yeah, this is, I say, an okay movie, but it really could have been so much more. Hey guys, my favorite character for this one, I actually am going to say it's Gene Hackman. I really do love Gene Hackman's role as Lex Luthor in these films. I really, really needed him in Superman 3. I feel like he would have really kind of elevated that movie. Now, he's kind of like the cheesy villain in this movie. Like, he's like, oh, I'm the criminal mastermind. And it's like, it's funny because he always tells us he's like this criminal mastermind. And I love how his ego is just like over the top. Like when he saw Zod in 2, he's like, yeah, I'm sure you know me, Lex Luthor. And he's like, yeah, criminal mastermind. He's like the most genius person on the planet. Like, but we haven't seen him do anything like that. But he's always just like, I'm gonna get us out of this. My big brain is gonna do this. I'm gonna create this thing. And he is really smart. I mean, he straight up creates a nuclear man DNA and they send into the sun. Like, it's not like he's a dummy, but I wish we saw more of Lex like accomplishing things or getting things done or like being a formidable opponent. And I guess that's just his character. And I love how he's just straight up not bald again. Like they put the wig thing in there in the first movie because Gene Hackman was probably just like, yo, I don't really want to be bald. So I know it's important for you, and I'll give you a few scenes in like the first couple movies, but for this one, he's like, I'm just wearing my hair again. So I thought he was really entertaining. And again, Christopher Reeve, of course, was the star of the show, but I don't want to just pick Christopher Reeve every time because that's boring. He's my favorite character every time. So I think Gene Hackman gets the credit that he was due, really more so for the first two movies, but I'm glad to see him back here. He was missing in 3, and I think he did a serviceable job, and I think he was my favorite part of this film. Okay, guys, that brings us to the score. This is a 6.8, and I wish this was a higher score. I really wanted to give this a higher score. Like 25, 30 minutes in this movie, I'm like, this looks pretty good. Like, just graphically, it's the most modern. I like the storyline. I like the fun elements of like Superman saving the Russians in space. It's cool. The nuclear arms race, awesome. Christopher Reeve, always awesome. We got Lois Lane back. We got this new hottie who's like super into Clark Kent. And she's like on the desk, like, arranging her legs in a certain way. And she's like, Lois is like, I don't think he's going to be interested in you. And she's like, oh, honey. She's like, every man is interested in me. And I was in my head, I was like, yeah, because you're hot. And she's like, because I'm rich. And I'm like, I don't think they care. I don't think they care that you're rich. I think if you were ugly and rich, they wouldn't give a shit. But because you're hot and rich, they just thank you because you're hot. But that was fun seeing like her kind of hit on Clark and him getting uncomfortable. And I think Christopher Reeve did a great job there. But then it just kind of falls apart in the second half where it's like Nuclear Man. And he could have been really sick. It could have been a really awesome, like almost Silver Surfer design, like Nuclear Energy or like Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2. Could have been sick. It was 1987, guys. Times were different. Effects were different. But they basically just made like a normal wrestling dude. And they went hard on wrestling. And it was the late 80s. So I get it. Wrestling was bigger then. And they were really pushing an agenda. And they wanted to be like, look, America. And he's like, they're fighting on the moon. And a moon fight should be sick. A moon fight should be really cool. And what they could have really done, if they got really creative, is fight on the dark side of the moon. Or they're like going between the dark and the light side. So like, man is like losing power, like maybe they're fighting and then he goes and then they're fighting and they get sent to the dark side of the moon and then he's useless and then maybe the moon orbits again and then he gets a little bit of energy, and they did a little bit of that, but like it could have been really cool on the moon. And instead, it was just kind of like a joke, and it was like, all right, this is basically like a wrestling match, and I get it, but he's like literally hitting him into the moon as a wrestler. I mean, Superman gets frozen by Nuclear Man at the beginning. I'm like, oh, he's done. Superman's done, and then he just like heats up eventually and gets out. And this movie could have been so much more. You know, it was okay. I like the runtime. I like how it's nice and short. I think some of this movie is really well made, but the horrible action sequences really like drag it down for me. And then just not caring about Nuclear Man and making him dumb. And it kind of reminded me of Turbo Man, except Arnold Schwarzenegger was so charming as Turbo Man that like I would have rather had Turbo Man versus Superman. That would be much more entertaining, dude. That would have made much more sense. But I thought Mark Pillow didn't really bring anything to the performance. I feel like he was just really flat and boring. So this movie, a 6.8, and I just wish it was higher. And it had a potential. It could have been really cool with the arms race and Superman and his powers and nuclear war and the fear of that and the Cold War and all that stuff. But instead, it coming with just a goofy ride again. So that's where it stands for the score, guys. And let's go over the rankings. This is going to slot in at number 3 of 4. So I think the first two Superman movies are still better. I think this one is better than Superman 3. But I was hoping it would be at number 2. I was hoping this would like challenge for either number 1 or number 2. And just by the end of this movie, I was just like, damn, dude, none of the action scenes looked good. And the story fell apart, and Nuclear Man, and it wasn't amazing Lois and Clark scenes or Lois and Superman scenes, and there was that fun switching double date thing, but there wasn't really much more of that. I mean, I didn't even mention they take the Statue of Liberty out, and I was like, oh, dude, Nuclear Man is just gonna throw the Statue of Liberty at people? That's crazy. And also, I didn't talk about Superman's rewind eyes now. That dude's just got rewind eyes now? Like he's just rewinding time by he's like looking at stuff and he's like rebuilding stuff. He doesn't have to spin the world around anymore. Now he's just upgraded his powers. He went to the skill tree and hit upgrade, dude. He held it X or A, and now he can just rewind time by looking at stuff. And I'm like, all right, man, we didn't explain this, and we kind of like went out overboard with Superman powers. So I think this series, this Christopher Reeve series, is so interesting because the first two movies are goofy but pretty solid and mostly serious entries, and then the third and fourth they just got really wacky with it, and I just don't understand why. And again, it's watching this in 2025 is different because 1987 we didn't have Iron Man, we didn't have the MCU, we didn't have all these serious big time superhero movies were kind of a joke. We didn't have Dark Knight or Batman Begins or any of that. So like I have to remember looking at this in a time capsule in 1987, the superhero scale is so much different. And so you look at these movies for what they are, and I wish that they were like grounded and more serious, but again, that wasn't the vibe at the time. So the first two Superman movies, I think, not great movies, but still a pretty good story. 3 and 4 are just kind of a mess. And Christopher Reeve, amazing in all of them, but he's kind of the lone bright spot, and probably Lois too. But it just these 4 movies really could have been 4 of like the greatest superhero movies of all time, and instead we just kind of get like a mixed bag, I think. Okay, guys, well that is it for the Christopher Reeve section. The Christopher Reeve saga, it kind of ends unceremoniously. You're kind of like, oh, that's it. And now obviously I'm assuming Christopher Reeve had his accident after this movie, so they were probably planning on at least one more. Maybe there's like a final send off, and then I'm sure with the accident that changed everything. So I'll look into that just for my own curiosity's sake. But the next one up we have is Superman Returns, which is a 2006 movie. So it's really cool because I don't think we had any Superman movies from 1987. And again, obviously Christopher Reeve's injury affected that until 2006, which is crazy. And then obviously we get Man of Steel in 2013, and then Batman v Superman in 2016, I believe, or 17. So there's a long gap here between Superman movies. So the next Superman movie we see will be a modern movie, 2006. And so it's a new Superman. It's only a one-off. I don't think he got another film after that because, oh yeah, because then we got Man of Steel after that. So I'm interested to see if it's any good, and it should be better graphically, at least like visually. So we'll see, guys. But the Christopher Reeve era, a really great era, but again, a lot of potential and could have been more, but it was a different time, so it's hard to compare to modern stuff. But I'm still enjoying these guys. I'm so glad I'm watching these for the first time. I feel like a real Superman fan now, where before I'm just like, Superman kind of sucks. And now I'm like, oh, I actually kind of love this character, and I love Christopher Reeve's portrayal of it. And now it's like, even Henry Cavill, I'm like, that's going to be hard to live up to, dude. So we'll see how the rest of it goes, guys. But thanks for checking out this episode of Look Up. We have 3 more to go. before we get to the big new Superman, James Gunn Superman. So appreciate you guys. If you did like the content, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing. And until next time, guys, look up.